Okay, Janiel.
Okay.
Sige.
Good afternoon to all of us. We are the group 5 and we'll be discussing the different types of chemical reactions, how to balance a chemical equation, and we'll also be introducing the reactivity series of metals. But before moving forward, we would like to greet Teacher Reza a happy belated World Teachers Day. Sarang teacher. And thank you for everything, teacher. So that's all. Moving forward, let's have a recap. Next slide, please. So chemical reaction. In our daily lives, we experience a variety of chemical reactions happening around us and also within us. No, the combustion of gasoline in order for us to cook, the simple act of washing, and also digesting what we just ate are all examples of chemical reaction. So chemical reaction involves the rearrangement or transformation of the molecular structure of a substance to a new substance. And in chemical reactions, existing bonds may be broken or new bonds may be formed. And chemical reaction has two components, reactants and the products. So reactants are the initial output or kumbaga ang ingredients ng chemical reaction natin. And without the reactants, there would be no formation of products, there would be no chemical reaction. And products on the other sides are the output or the result of our chemical reaction from the reactants that we used or that was used. So reactants are usually located on the left side or before an arrow. And ang products naman is usually on the right side or after an arrow. Next slide. Subscripts and coefficients. Subscripts represent the number of atoms present in a molecule. And subscripts are usually written beside and slightly below a chemical symbol. And the absence of subscripts automatically denotes that the element or a compound only has a single atom. So on the other side, coefficient represents the number of molecules present in our represents the number of molecules present, and it is written beside a chemical symbol. And in balancing chemical equations, coefficients are the one that we manipulate, unlike the subscripts. Types of chemical reaction. So first is the synthesis reaction. Next slide. So synthesis reaction is also known as the combination reaction, in where two or more reactants are combined in order to form a product. So for example, just like the representation presented above, substance A and substance B, the combination of them yields the compound AB. Next. The decomposition reaction is the opposite of the synthesis reaction. Now, in where a compound is broken down to its elements or to its components. So yun lang, there is a compound is broken down to its components. Next. Single replacement reaction or single displacement reaction. So in single replacement or single displacement reaction, an element or molecule replaces another in a compound. And single replacement reaction depends on the reactivity series of metals. So ang product ng single replacement reaction or kung may reaction ba na mangyari is nagadepend sa reactivity series of metals, which will be further discussed by my group members later. And for example, just like the representation presented above, so compound AB and substance C yields compound A, C, and substance B. So parang pinagpalit ni A, C, B para kay C. So there is a replacement. Next. Double replacement reaction or double displacement reaction. So two ionic compounds exchange ions producing two new ionic compounds. So there is an exchange. And double replacement reaction can also be called as metathesis. So the last type of chemical reaction is the combustion reaction, which is the oxidation of an organic compound or of carbon-containing compound to produce carbon dioxide and water to release energy in the form of heat or light. And combustion reaction can also be considered as burning. Next slide, please. So balancing chemical reactions. In balancing chemical reactions, the number of atoms for each element involved in the reaction in the reactant side as well as in the product side must be equal in order for us to satisfy the principle of the conservation of mass, which states that matter can neither be broken or can neither be destroyed, rather, nor created. Next, please. So balanced chemical equation. So looking at the reactant side, there are two atoms of nitrogen as well as 6 atoms of hydrogen. And on the product side, there are 2 atoms of nitrogen and 6 atoms of hydrogen. So therefore, this is a balanced chemical equation kasi equal sila ng atoms in each elements in both sides. Next. Okay, next reporter na.
Good afternoon, everyone. So before we proceed to the main part of this report, pwede ko magbisaya mo, kaya mas masabtal ko magbisaya.
Sure.
So we will have a game. So next slide, please. So guess the reaction. So guess the chemical reaction of the given equation. Format of answering sa chat box ng takay, kung mag-on mic or Google kayo siya ma-cater. So ang format of answering, last name, underscore, answer, underscore, name sa crush. Ang name sa crush, tinod-on ha, kay mag-background check me. Kung dili na tinod na tao, walay points. Gcash ba yung 5 kada tama na answer? Next slide. Next slide, please. Sige, number 1. Unsa ni siya na reaction? CO2 plus H2O unsa ni will be unsa man yung product?
Carbonic acid.
Carbonic acid. Sorry ma'am. Na-loading ko. Sige na, Gcash ba yan ni guys? Ang format sa answer ha kay last name, underscore, answer, underscore, name sa crush. Uy, wala siya mag-answer. Nabi ni plus points kay ma'am.
Pwede dili na lang crush. Pwede akong pangalan ng ulit.
Uy, maas. Dili, dapat name sa crush.
Wala.
Yun na lang. Kung pwede, kung di ba, hilig man tag K-drama or sa bada, K-pop, sige, butang na lang dira. Okay, ang naka-answer kay si Charmy. Char, dili di ay. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. Dili siya combustion. Ira Dumlao. Correct. Correct si Ira. Tama. Correct. Si Ira Dumlao. So number 2. Same format, guys. CH4 plus O2 will yield 2CO2 plus H2O. Pero dili siya balance. Ay, balance di siya. Ay, dili siya balance. Pero bala na, wala na siya. Answer na yung reaction. Reaction lang bitaw, dili ang balance equation ang ginapangita. So, guys, answer. Ang nakakuha ng answer kay si Crizia Cartojano. Ang answer, please. Ay, wali. Di ay gihapon. Kinsay nakatawa? Wala. Wala. Wala, buot-buot tuloy ko sa answer. Sige, go. Wala naka-answer na tama. Skip na lang ni skip. Sige na guys, kay limited lang among time. Mag-wrap it niyan yan. Taod-taod. Number 3. Yun yan ako mag-reveal sa answer B. Ka na mag-next slide na. Number 3. Nag-PM dyan sa kasi Kezia Lambot. Una siya nag-answer. Yeah, tama yung answer. Tama lagi na. Single replacement jud ni short ko. Si Lambot Judel ang sa number 3. Number 2, wala naka-answer. Next please. Okay, number 4. Ay lang mag PM guys. Kay dili PM is the key karon ko lang kaning sa everyone lang isend. Abelia. Reveal daw sa answer please. Tama si Abelia. Si Abelia. Next question please. Hala, advance si ano, Bautista. Bautista la yan na type. Number 5. Kinsa na si C. Lambot, char. Tama. Then next, next slide. Ang answer na. Tama si Lambot. Yeah, Lambot. Grabe man si Lambot. Uy, gihakot niya ang Gcash ba? Char lang.
Ang palit ako pagkaon.
Number 6 na. More answers pa, more. Ay, answer reveal na daw, please. Tama si Cartojano. Cartojano. Wow, extra. So, ang mga naka-answer, maka-receive sila o e-certificate at the same time maka-receive po sila 5 pesos worth sa Gcash kada tama nila na answer. Maton, let's proceed. Next slide, please. So, ang i-report ko ang first part or ang A sa activity 6, which is yung i-classify mo kung ano ang reaction, i-predict mo ang product, tsaka yung kung ano yung balance equation ng balance equation ng given. Next slide, please. So before ako mag-start sabi ng answers as stated sa PowerPoint, there are 3 steps na gi-follow ko para makuha ko ang balance equation. reaction tsaka product. So first is i-identify ko kung ano yung chemical reaction na mangyari. So gi-base ko yun siya sa kung ano yung format or placement ng given equation. Next is I assume kung ano yung possible na product. So we all know that kung ano yung reactants, yun din yung possible na maglabas sa side ng products. Next is if I already got the reaction and the if I already predicted the reaction and the products, doon na ako mag-balance ng equation. So number 1, magnesium plus oxygen will yield to MgO. So ang kanyang product ay MgO. So both sides man may magnesium tsaka may oxygen. So the reaction pala, sorry, yun na ako ang product. Ang reaction pala is synthesis since we see two components or two elements, malaman talaga natin na combination siya tsaka synthesis or synthesis. So yun nga, may reaction na tayo. We see that we predicted that the product is MgO. So balance ba siya? Hindi. Since since isa lang ang oxygen sa product side, tsaka tapos dalawa ang sa reactant side. So ang mangyari, hindi ba natin pwede i-change or i-alter ang mga subscripts? So ang i-add natin ay coefficient. So we added 2 sa we added 2 sa product side para maging 2 ang oxygen. Tapos we also added 2 sa magnesium sa reactant side para maging balance siya. So next, number 2 is calcium carbonate ang reactant. So based sa given, malaman talaga natin na ang mangyari na reaction ay decomposition. Since isa lang man na compound man ang given, we will assume na ang reaction niya ay decomposition. So ang mangyari from one compound, it will yield to its components. So we will assume na may Ca or calcium. Sa reactant side, may oxygen tsaka may carbon. So the products we predicted ay calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So ang next natin i-check is kung balance ba ang equation. So we can see that na isa lang ang calcium sa both sides, isa lang din ang carbon sa both sides, tapos ang oxygen sa both sides ay 3. Since i-add man natin ang oxygen ng calcium oxide sa oxygen sa carbon dioxide. So next. May naintindihan kayo? Or baka mabilis lang masyado ang aking pagsasalita? I thank you, sir, nag-react. So sa number 3, we can assume based sa given, ang possible na mangyari ay single replacement kasi may element tapos compound. Pero we all know that single replacement reaction, mag-base siya sa activity series. So kung mas reactive yung i-replace nung single element, kung mas reactive yung nasa compound, possible na hindi niya hindi niya replace. So ang ilagay namin ay no reaction kasi doon kami nag-base na nakita namin na activity series. So sa number 4 naman, same siya ng format sa number 3, which is my single element plus MgOH or a compound name magnesium hydroxide. So since nalaman na natin ang reaction, ang next natin na i-assume ay ang product. So Mg plus KOH. So MgKOH. So kung ilatag natin siya like K plus MgOH arrow MgKOH pala dapat yan. Kaya wala pa man natin MgKOH ba? MgKOH ang product. So kung i-balance natin siya, malaman natin na hindi pa man balance siya kung walang 2 sa product side na nitong potassium hydroxide. So, ang balance equation niya dapat ay 2K plus MgOH2. Tama ba? Oo nga. Tapos, ang kanyang product ay Mg plus 2KOH. Kana para murag klaro kay kung mag-hydroxide ko dito. So, next slide, please. So, itong given sa number 5, based sa kaniyang format, if may compound na CH plus oxygen na molecule, we will really assume na combustion ang mangyari. So, this is propane plus oxygen. It will yield to, ang product talaga ng combustion ay carbon dioxide saka water. So, ang predict namin na product, CO2 plus H2O. So, if we balance it, since hindi equal ang oxygen at hindi talaga siya balance pala talaga. So, para i-balance siya, we added 5 sa oxygen sa product side, sa reactant side. We added 3 sa tabi ng CO2 and we added 4 sa tabi ng H2O. So, mapansin mo na ang carbon ngayon sa both sides, after we added those coefficients, ay pantay na ang C, ang H, tsaka ang O. Yun lang po. Justine, you're next.
Hello? Audible po?
Yes.
Okay. So sa number 6, ang first step natin is ang product. So ang gigawa ko para ma-predict ang product, alam ko muna kung ano yung mga ano yung mga charge ng each element. So aluminum has positive 3 charge and then the chlorine has a negative 1 charge. So di ba pag isolve natin sila, dili man sila balance. So di ba ang ingon man ni ma'am, kung dili sila balance, i-criss-cross na to. So i-criss-cross na to sila dalawa, maong ang result is AlCl3 kay nag-criss-cross man sila. On the other side pod maging ato sa ta, so ang product is AlC3 plus Na2O. So nakalimot ko nga double replacement di ay ang reaction. As for balancing the equation, mag-add tayo ng 2 na coefficient sa aluminum sa product side para ma-balance siya. Tapos another coefficient na 6 sa Na na reactant. So after adding the numbers, kay ma-balance na siya. So ato lang ang gihimo para ma-balance ang equation. Next slide please. So sa number 7, parihapod tong kay Ate Kiana ganiha sa iyahang number 3 at ato or number 4, single replacement pud ang reaction ani niya. Kaso lang mas taas ay zinc is more reactive in the activity series man. So kung i-replace siya sa other element, dili siya anuhan og result. So mao nang no reaction siya, guys. For number 8 sa product, ang gihimo pud namo pareha lang katong sa giingon nako nga katong sa nako ang mga charge nila gi-identify. So, 'di ba ang iron man has a positive 3 charge tapos ang hydroxide kay may negative 1 charge. So dili siya balance pag isolve na to. So mag-criss-cross ta ulit. So mao nang FeOH3 plus NaCl ang product na to. As for balancing ulit, nag-add tayo ng 3 na coefficient sa reactant and another 3 another 3 sa Na na product para maging balance sila. Ingatan lang gihimo para mabalance sila. Next slide, please. Number 9, ang iyahang reaction is double replacement reaction. So sa product, pag predict og product, ing ato ulit amo ang gihimo. Positive 1 ang charge sa NH4, then negative 1 ang charge sa HCO3. So equal to sila, dili ta mag-criss-cross. So ingana lang atong himuod, stay put lang sila. Tapos i-plus na to ang Na2SO4 pero di ba ang charge man sa Na sa sodium is positive 1 and the SO4 has a positive 2 na charge, so mag-criss-cross tayo. So kaya naging Na2SO4 ang product niya. For balancing equation, sa reactant na side, nag-add tayo ng coefficient 2 and also another 2 na coefficient sa NH4 sa product para maging balance sila. Sa number 10, ang chemical reaction niya is also a double replacement reaction. So naay dalawa ka element na mag-replace. Sa product, ang gihimo na pud nako ulit pareha lang kay gilista na ko ang mga charge nila. Ang aluminum may positive 3 na charge and ang NO3 kay may negative 1 na charge. So di-criss-cross lang sila kay dili man balance ang ilahang pag-isolve. So ang product is AlNO3 open close parenthesis 3 plus AgF. For balancing equation, nag-add tayo ng coefficient 3 sa reactant na side ng Ag and 3 ulit sa Ag na side ng product na side. Nagets ko, guys? Mao lang to. Next na, guys.
Hello? Audible po ako? Oo.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's proceed to what is activity series of metals? Okay. So activity series of metals is a list of metals arranged in descending order. So when we say descending, so this means that in a metal activity series, makita nato ang pinaka most reactive metals at the top, sa pinakataas ato ang list, down to the least reactive metals. So activity series of metals is also known as reactivity series of metals, which is an empirical, calculated, and structurally analytical progression of a series of metals. So when you say reactivity, it is a measure of how readily a substance undergoes a chemical reaction. So pareha itong gisulti ganina ni Judel, when we say chemical reaction, no, it is a process in which one or more substances, or also called as the reactants, are converted to one or more different substances, which is known as our products. So activity series of metals is used to predict products in displacement or replacement reactions. So it can also be used to acquire information about the activity of metals towards water and acids. So only a few of the most reactive metals are able to displace hydrogen from water, while a larger number will displace hydrogen ion from an acid. So the least reactive metals are not able to displace hydrogen from either of these and are therefore found at the bottom of the series. So pareha ato ganina sa pagbalance of equation if ang ang pag-replace or displace sa mga components or sa mga substances is if mag-base ta sa activity series of metals, if ang arrangement sa isa ka metal or if a metal can displace metal ions listed below, it in the activity series but not above. So it will be further discussed sa next na reporter.
All right, so we are down to the activity series of metals list. So sa activity 5, we are asked na mag-list ng arrangement of activity series. So here are, so ito na. So yeah, as you can see in the screen is the list na activity series. So if we put the metals in order of their reactivity from the most reactive down to the least reactive, we get a list called the reactivity series. So ang list na ito ay tinatawag na reactivity series. So we've come up of this list as a group. So nag-combine kami ng mga group and ito yung list na come up namin. So as a previous reporter, we have known that reactivity means how reactive something is. And it can be used to predict the products in similar reactions involving a different metal. As you can see the screen, diba, the list of the arrangement of metals. So in a reactivity series, the most reactive element is placed at the top and the least reactive element is at the bottom. So more reactive metals have a greater tendency to lose electrons and form possible ions. That means it has the most reactivity and the least reactive metal. So nakita natin sa screen yung first is the potassium that presents the most reactivity metal, and the least reactive metal is listed on the last, which is the platinum. So all the group 1 metals are reactive, but they got more reactive as you go down the group. So potassium is more reactive than sodium, which is more reactive than lithium. So this can be explained by looking at the electric structure of the atoms. And in addition, in order to react, the metal needs to lose an electron, so it will be easier to, if the electron is easy to lose its electron, the more reactive it will be. So remember lang natin na the only metal, a metal higher in the reactivity series will displace another. So mag-along din po ako ng advantages, no? So advantages ng reactivity series is to help us to compare the reactivity of the given metals. As mentioned din kanina pala na with the use of the reactivity series of metals, we can predict the products involving a different metal or another element. So that's it.
So mag-play na po the game. Same prices, same format sa pag-answer ha. Marag 3 numbers ang atan ni. So ang first na makita ni Judel, mo to siya ang So ang format again, last name underscore answer underscore name sa crush, or kung K-pop idol ba na, K-pop artist, sa anime, sa badara, go lang. Okay, next slide please. So guess what element? Guess the element described in the item. So mag-base ta sa activity series of metals. Which element is less reactive than gold? Daghan ay ogani. Which less reactive than gold? Anyone? Anyone na mag-answer? The answer is platinum. Ang una naka-answer kay si Lady Garcia. Lady Garcia. Next slide, please. More reactive than mercury but less reactive than bismuth. May naka-answer na? Ay, okay. Naka-answer kay si, wait lang siya po. May naka-answer na, Judel? Ah, okay. Next. Ang answer ay copper. Copper ba to? Okay. Next slide, please. Ay, copper nga. So, reactive than sodium. What is more reactive than sodium? Grabe si Lady. Okay, si Lady. Next slide. Ang answer, please. Okay, thank you. Yan lang po ang aming games, guys.
So, conclusion. So, chemical reaction is the rearrangement nga of a substance to form a new substance. So, it is the rearrangement of a reactant to form a product. And there are a variety of chemical reactions that is happening around us and within us, which are vital or which are needed or which contributes in order for us to live, for our survival. And it is very important for us to balance chemical equations in order to satisfy the principle of the conservation of mass, which states that matter can neither be destroyed nor created. So, ibig sabihin, there is a constant quantity of matter in our universe. And we also discuss yung different types of chemical reaction. So, may 5, may synthesis, decomposition, single replacement, double displacement, and then yung combustion reaction. And for the single replacement reaction, reactivity series of metal must be considered in order to identify its products. And ang reactivity series of metals is the arrangement or ordered arrangement of metals according to their reactivity from the most reactive na potassium down to the least one, which is yung platinum. Yun lang. That's all for the conclusion. Thank you.
Okay, let us check. Let's start with number 1. The reporters have really reported the correct answers for the activity. And you go back sa number 1. Share screen ulit tapos number 1. Okay, so this is number 1. We only have 5 types of chemical reactions here in the activity. We have the first one, the synthesis or the combination reaction. As reported, how will you know if you have a combination reaction? In the product, in the reactants na side, you will have at least 2 elements combining together. But actually, we can also have compounds as long as you will see class na the reaction involves combining 2 or more elements or 2 or more compounds to form one product only. So again, you will have one product only if it is a synthesis or a combination reaction. So just like in number 1, you have here magnesium combining with oxygen. That is the given, and you have to predict the product. Now, in this case, this is automatically a synthesis reaction. So this is correct, or a combination reaction. And then all you need to do is to combine. You have magnesium plus oxygen. By the way, oxygen is a member of our diatomic molecules. Diba? We are using the mnemonics bridge, no, for this. These are the elements that if they are free or uncombined, hindi sila nakakombine with other elements, they exist as diatomic molecules. So O there is for oxygen. So that is the reason why here in our given, magnesium does not have a subscript na 2, but oxygen has. So after that, you have to combine this one, but remember my instruction when combining the elements to form a compound, please do not copy the subscript because the subscript there will be dependent to the charges of the combining elements. So that is the first step. Combine the symbols of the reacting elements. And then the second step will be checking if you have the correct chemical formula of the product. Now, how are you going to check that? You have to check their charges. Like for example, you have their magnesium. Magnesium belongs to group 2 in the periodic table. Thus, this is positive 2. While oxygen belongs in the group 6A in the periodic table, and the elements in that group have negative 2 as the charge. So for a compound class, for the chemical formula of a compound to be correct, dapat ang sum, the sum of the positive and the negative charges will be 0. So in this case, this is 0, so no need to do the crisscross, which means na tama na itong chemical formula na ito. You don't need a subscript here. Okay, so that is the second step. Ikatlong step na yung balancing the equation. So in balancing, if you can do the mental way of balancing the chemical equation, I have no problem with that. But para mas madali for those na nalilito, just list down the elements involved. Anyway, we have 2 elements only here. And on the left side, we have the reactants. On the right side, you have the product. You just count the number of atoms, and that will be identified using the subscripts. For example, magnesium is 1 here. You only have 1 atom, while oxygen is 2 kasi may subscript siya na 2. On the other side, wala kang subscript na nakikita dyan, so that is automatically 1 for both magnesium and oxygen. So as you can see, this is not a balanced equation. Thus, we have to balance this one. And in balancing, we only use and change the coefficients, not the subscripts. Ang coefficients class, iyan yung nilalagay sa tabi ng ating chemical formula. Okay, and that will give you the number of molecules present in the equation. So since 2 yung ating oxygen, I'll write 2 here as coefficient, which makes oxygen 2. But since this is referring to the whole molecule, so aside from sa oxygen, si oxygen ay naging 2, si magnesium din ay magiging 2. So to balance this, let's also write 2 here on the other side so that all the elements will be balanced. So yes, this is correct. This is the correct product. The reaction is correct, synthesis or combination reaction. And the balanced equation is also correct. Any question for number 1? Or clarification? Alin dyan yung hindi naintindihan? Again, pag example sa mga quizzes or sa exam natin class, binigyan ko kayo ng element reacting with another element, most likely it will be a synthesis or combination reaction, and you will only have 1 product for this type of reaction. 1 product lang, 1 compound. But always see to it that your chemical formula is correct. That is why in the lecture a while ago, I chose to give you another set of activity for the naming and the formulation of the chemical formula. Para ma-review kayo para pag mag-predict kayo ng products sa ating mga equations, hindi kayo mahirapan. Now, moving on, let's have the number 2. For the given sa number 2, you only have one compound there. So it's the complete opposite of number 1. Kapag ka ganito, may nakita kayo, the only given is one compound only, automatic class, that will be a decomposition reaction. Hindi siya magre-react with other chemicals. It's just that siya mismo ay mag-separate into components. Now, the separation can be, pwede kayong bigyan nito ng elements talaga, maghihiwalay talaga siya sa mga components niya na elements, or possible din naman na yung compound magbe-breakdown into another compound pa, or mga 2 or more compounds. So hindi lahat class ha na elements talaga yung magiging products. Just like this one, calcium carbonate. Hindi siya pwedeng ganito. Baka kasi may nag-answer ng ganito. Okay? Hindi pwede kasi calcium tapos carbonate. So paghiwalayin natin siya, calcium tapos carbonate. No, in making a chemical equation, you have to see to it that the product will be a stable element or a compound. Now, this one is a stable element. 0 naman yung kanyang oxidation state dyan. But this one is not stable. I believe you know this, na carbonate is included in your index cards for the polyatomic ion. So, carbonate is -2. Meron siyang charge class, hindi siya stable, so hindi siya pwedeng maging part ng decomposition reaction natin. Again, kailangan you have to see to it that the resulting product or products will be either a stable element or a stable compound. So kasi hindi ito pwede, maghahanap ka ngayon ng mga pwede pa niyang maging product. So pag nag-decompose si calcium carbonate, first ang isusulat natin si calcium carbonate. So we have here the calcium, and wala naman tayong element class na compound class na CaC. Tama, wala tayong CaC. Hindi na pwede yung Ca and CO3 ha. Though Ca is okay but CO3 is not. Wala tayong compound again na CaC, calcium carbide, but we have calcium oxide. So we'll write here calcium oxide. Meron tayong ganyan na compound. Anong naiwan? From CO3 minus isang oxygen, ang naiwan is carbon dioxide. And this is a compound, right? A stable compound. So pwede siyang ilagay dito ngayon. Okay? So ayun, nag-decompose na ang ating calcium carbonate. You have there the calcium oxide plus the carbon dioxide. Okay? So that is how you know the decomposition products of the given element here. The compound here. Now, before ka mag-balance, please check first whether this calcium oxide is a correct chemical formula or not. O baka kailangan natin ng subscript. So check the charges. Calcium is +2. Oxide is -2. This is equal to 0. So no need for a crisscross. Definitely this is a correct chemical formula. Now you know this. Kahit hindi pa natin i-check, carbon dioxide is CO2. Okay? So that this is now our correct products. But let's check if this is balanced or not. This is correct here. The composition, the products are correct. You have written here, this is already balanced. But for the sake na sure tayo, let's just check if this is already balanced. On the reactant na side, we have 1 calcium, 1 carbon, and 3 oxygen. On the other side, 1 calcium, you have here 1 carbon, and for the oxygen, this is 1 here plus 2. So this is 3. So yes, this is already a balanced equation. Calcium carbonate will decompose into 1 molecule of calcium oxide and 1 molecule of carbon dioxide. So that is for number 2. Any question, clarification for number 2? Wala. So continue tayo. Let's have number 3. Please move the slide. Okay. So this one, dito ako may correction. Number 1 correction ko dito. This should mali yung sa activity. It's not your fault. Sa activity, this should be Na2CO3. Okay? So why? Ano Na2CO3 man na siya? If we check that, sodium is positive 1, carbonate is negative 2. So positive 1 plus negative 2 is negative 1. So definitely we have to do the crisscross. Thus for sodium carbonate, the correct chemical formula is Na2CO3. Okay? If you are in doubt of the chemical formula, always go back to the charges class, especially if you are dealing with inorganic na mga compounds. Compounds without carbon. Though here, meron kang carbon dyan, but the carbonate, remember, is an exception to the rule because even though it contains carbon, it is under the inorganic chemistry, okay? Or inorganic compound siya, to be specific. Now, another correction that I would like to make for number 3 is, this is actually a possible reaction. So, meron tayong reaction here. But this is not your fault again. Why? Kasi there are literatures, and I think even in the lecture, I think I have this slide about activity series of metal na nasa ikatatlo si lithium. So again, it's not your fault. If you have passed your activity and then you have written there no reaction, that's okay. I'll just consider this one, but for the sake na makorek natin siya, most of the literatures actually, ang activity series of metal, number 1 si lithium, number 2 si potassium. Okay? Pero yung nakita nyo, I think sa lecture, and then I think other literatures nga nakita nyo, nauna si potassium class. So kaya nilagyan nyo dito ng no reaction. But actually nung niaging kanusa pa ko ani nagsigig check for the different sources, and most of the reliable sources would really list lithium as the most reactive metal. So number 1 siya. So kung nakabuhat na mo dira og index card for your activity series of metal, kindly check or kindly do another one if nakabuhat na mo niya potassium inyong number 1. So to help you para di ta maglibog, I'll give you isend ako sa chat ang activity series of metal that we will use. So nauna dira si sodium. Ay sorry, si lithium. Asa na to? Ayan, na-send na. Activity series of metals. Nakita na. And please download that. That will be the list na susundin natin. Lithium as the number 1. So since lithium is number 1, definitely it's the most reactive metal and that this reaction is actually possible. Okay? Now, this is again a single replacement reaction. How will you know that you will have a single replacement reaction? You have an element reacting with a compound. Okay? So again, this is how you know that you will have a single replacement reaction. An element, most likely, pwede siyang metal, and most of the time it's metal, and then reacting with a compound. Okay, so that is single replacement. Now, the next thing that you have to do before you can proceed with the prediction of the products is to check whether the reaction is possible through the help of the activity series of metal. Kailangan yung ipapalit mo na element ay mas reactive kaysa sa original element in the compound. So, in this case, lithium is more reactive. So, pwede niya yang palitan si sodium there. Okay, sodium ang papalitan ha, metal to metal. Remember, if you look at the compound sodium carbonate, the sodium there is the metal and carbonate is a polyatomic ion. So definitely ang papalitan ni lithium, si sodium. So lithium and then si carbonate plus madi-displace si sodium. Okay, that's the next step. After checking if the reaction is possible in the activity series of metal, kung possible siya, okay, you replace the element. But please do not copy the subscripts, except for the carbonate, because carbonate is really CO3. Meron talaga siyang tatlong oxygen. Okay? But take note, when I wrote sodium here, I did not include the 2. Why? Because sodium is not included in our diatomic molecules Birchnow. Hindi kasali si sodium doon and hindi siya diatomic kapag siya, single element. Okay? But before ka mag-balance ng equation, you also have to check whether the lithium carbonate there is correct or not. Or we need to have a subscript or not. And how are you going to do that? Syempre, you go back to the charges. So lithium belongs to group 1A in the periodic table. So this is positive 1. And carbonate, look at your index cards. For the polyatomic ions, we have here negative 2. So this is not equal to 0. Kailangan na ito mag-criss-cross. Meaning lithium will take the 2 and then you have there the CO3. Okay? Wait. Wait. Nasaan na ito? We have here, sige, lithium carbonate. So this has 2 here. Loris, are you raising your hand? Raise your hand in here. Yes, questions? Pwede na ka mag-unmute or pwede na mo i-send imong questions sa chat. Ha? Naipangutan na? Wala? So okay na tayo here. This is the correct chemical formula of lithium carbonate now. So this time, pwede na tayo mag-proceed with the balancing. So we have Li, sodium, and take note, I don't separate this one. I'll count this as one entity, carbonate, kasi hindi naman din siya naghiwalay on the product na side. Take note, carbonate siya here, carbonate pa rin naman siya dito. So no need to separate the carbon and the oxygen. That is to help us sa balancing. Now we have 1 lithium, 2 sodium, 1 carbonate. Okay, isang carbonate yan siya. Kapag hindi yan siya nakalagay sa open and closed parenthesis class and merong subscript dito, automatic it's counted as 1. Now for lithium, you have 2, sodium 1, and carbonate is 1. Okay, so hindi balance si sodium and si lithium. I can start with lithium though, kasi nauna naman na siya. This is trial and error naman pag balancing. So I'll place 2 here. Ay, hindi siya makita. I'll place 2 here. So this becomes 2. And for sodium, I'll also place 2 here. So this becomes 2 also. So this is the correct answer now for number 3. Okay? Again, the reaction is possible because lithium is actually number 1 in the list sa activity series of metal. Questions? May pangutan na? So okay na tayo dyan. Let us move on to number 4. Number 4 is also correct. Single replacement reaction pa rin yan siya. As you can see, you have 1 element and then reacting with a compound. So in this case, you have potassium and then magnesium hydroxide. Okay, so single replacement, this is correct. Now, you have to look at the activity series of metal. Kung sino ba ang mas reactive, si potassium or si magnesium. Pero actually, without looking at the activity series of metal, I have mentioned a while ago that lithium is number 1 on the list and potassium is number 2. So definitely this is a possible reaction. Again, this is a possible reaction. Ang papalitan niya, class, hindi si hydroxide ha, instead it's the magnesium kasi metal to metal tayo. So this time, let's get rid of magnesium and ipalit natin si potassium. And then let's write the OH. Please do not copy the subscript. I know na merong 2 dyan sa hydroxide, sa magnesium hydroxide. Pero when writing a product, now, please do not copy the subscript. Mamaya na tayo maglagay if kailangan talaga based sa charges ng combining elements. And then, mahihiwalay na ngayon si magnesium. Okay? So please do not write 2 as subscript for magnesium because magnesium is not included in the Birchnow. So Mg lang talaga yan siya. Now for the case of potassium hydroxide, before you decide to write a subscript, please check first the charges. Potassium is +1. OH is -1. It's a polyatomic ion. So this is equal to 0, which means we don't need a subscript. So that is also already correct. Potassium hydroxide is just KOH. No need for a subscript na 2. Kung hindi natin kailangan ng subscript na 2, definitely this will not be balanced. So kailangan natin mag-balance ng equation. But again, the polyatomic ions will be counted as 1. No need to separate that. So we have 1 potassium, 1 magnesium, 2 hydroxide, 1 on the other side for potassium, 1 for OH. So you can see we don't have an open and closed parenthesis, so that is counted as 1. And magnesium is also 1. So ang hindi balanced dyan ay si OH. So I'll try to write 2 here so that OH will become 2. So this is balanced now. However, since this one is referring to 1 molecule, potassium is magiging 2 din siya, just like the OH. So hindi na siya magiging balance. So I'll place 2 also here so that this becomes 2 and this is now balanced. So tama yung answer, magnesium and 2 KOH. Okay, this is correct. So the balanced equation is this one, the whole equation ha. 2 molecules of potassium reacting with 1 molecule of magnesium hydroxide yielding 2 molecules of potassium hydroxide plus 1 molecule of magnesium. Okay? Questions for number 4. Any clarification? Wala? By the way, iklaro ko lang ha, si activity series of metal is only applicable for single replacement reaction. We don't use the activity series of metal to other types of reactions like sa combination, decomposition, and even double displacement. Hindi natin yon ginagamit. Okay, next. Number 5. We have here C3H8 plus oxygen. Looking at the given class automatic ha, this will be a combustion reaction. Remember, combustion reaction is burning, and burning only takes place if there is the presence of oxygen. Okay, pag walang oxygen, class, walang flame na mapuproduce. Kung kulang ang oxygen, there is still flame na mapoproduce. Pero that will now differentiate the yellow flame and the blue flame. For example, in the Bunsen burner. The Bunsen burner, diba, we have the gas source in the Bunsen burner. And if you open the air hole, you will have a blue flame, which means there is complete combustion. There is enough oxygen. But if you close the air hole, the flame will become yellow, and that is now an example of an incomplete combustion. Kulang ang oxygen. And most likely, yung aside from oxygen, we need here a carbon-containing compound. Yan yung sinusunog natin, class. Okay? So, automatic din, if you have recognized this as a combustion reaction, wala ka na din kailangang isipin na other products. Automatic, the products will be carbon dioxide and water. Again, pag na-recognize mo na siya na combustion reaction, automatic carbon dioxide and water lang talaga ang magiging products nito. Actually, pwede mo siyang lagyan ng, dili na din siya makasya. Dili sa taas ng kibatang. Ganito. That triangle represents the heat. Okay? Kasi this is burning, right? So, meron tayong heat na napoproduce. Pero it's not really included in the balancing. Okay? We just need to balance the carbon dioxide and water. So, since alam natin kaagad ang products ng combustion, diretso ka na class sa balancing. So, you only have 3 elements there, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. By the way, this is called propane because it has 3 carbons. Propane. Example ko ata last time, butane. Kasi mostly ginagamit natin magluto is butane. Now, for the number of atoms, we have 3 carbons, 8 hydrogen, 2 oxygen. On the other side, we have 1 carbon. Hydrogen is 2, oxygen is 2 plus 1. So, a total of 3 oxygens. Okay? Now, let's try to balance this. I'll start with carbon. Nauna naman na siya dyan sa listahan natin. So, I'll try to write 3 here. I'm saying I'll try because remember, balancing equation is trial and error. So, 3. But kasama niya si oxygen. So, 3 times 2, by the way, minumultiply natin si coefficient and si subscript to get the total number of atoms. So, that is 3 plus 2 equals 6. Pero may isa ka pa dito. So, that is now a total of 7. Now, this one is already balanced. Now, oxygen, looking at 2 and 7, I cannot balance this. So, I'll try to start with hydrogen first. I'll try to write 4 here. So, 4 times 2, this becomes 8. Now, since kasama niya si oxygen dyan, magbabago itong 7. This is 3 times 2, 6. Plus 4 times 1 is 4. So, a total of 10. Okay? 10 oxygen here. Now, looking at the numbers, yes, I can now balance the oxygen by writing 5 here kasi 5 times 2 is equal to 10. So, this is actually correct. So, the balanced equation on the screen is correct. You have there, susunugin natin 1 molecule of propane gamit ang 5 molecules ng oxygen. And this will yield 3 molecules of carbon dioxide and 4 molecules of water. Okay? Aside from the heat na mapoproduce. By the way, pag i-ask kayo, paano ma'am kung kulang ang oxygen? Example, di ba, ang isang propane, kailangan, before siya masunog completely, kailangan niya ng 5 molecules ng oxygen. Paano kung kulang ang ang oxygen? Ano mangyayari? Pag kulang ang oxygen, ganito ang mangyayari. C3H8 plus oxygen. Hindi ko na ilagay kung ilang oxygen dyan ha. Hindi ko na din siya itatry i-balance. But you have to take note na it will still produce carbon dioxide. It will produce still the water. It will also produce the heat. Meron ka pa ring flame na mapoproduce. But aside from that, meron tayong extra product. Para saan to? For incomplete combustion. Kailan siya mangyayari? Kapag kulang ang oxygen. Okay? So, ano yung magiging extra na product? It's
Soot.
okay, very good. Soot or carbon. That is just carbon itself. Or in layman's term, we call it soot. That is the color black material na makikita nyo sa mga kaldero nyo or sa mga glasswares natin. That's an indication na kulang ang oxygen when we have our combustion. Okay? Questions? Wala na? Okay. Sige. So, that is for the combustion reaction. Now, how about the next one? I think this is number 6, right? The given is only aluminum oxide and sodium chloride. So, kung nakikita nyo class, meron tayong compound reacting with another compound. So, iba na. Kasi kanina, single replacement element plus compound. Ngayon, compound plus compound. So, definitely, this is double displacement exchange partners tayo. Again, exchange tayo ng partners. So we have here originally the given is aluminum oxide. Magre-react siya with sodium chloride. And this will yield exchange type partners. Let's try to know kung alin dyan ang magpa-partner. Aluminum is positive 3, oxygen is negative 2, sodium is positive 1, chlorine is negative 1. So, mag-exchange sila. Okay? Mag-exchange sila kasi in chemistry, remember our rule, opposite attracts. Hindi pwede si aluminum mag-partner kay sodium. Parehas silang positively charged. They will repel each other. So, aluminum and chlorine now. Again, please do not copy the subscript. Mamaya na tayo mag-finalize pag na-check na natin ang charge. So just like this, I did not copy the subscript na 2 for aluminum. And now Na will partner with oxygen. So this is Na and O. That's the first step. Just exchange the partners. Now, ang next step is to identify whether we need a subscript or not, or we need to identify or check whether the chemical formula is correct or not. For AlCl, aluminum chloride, this is positive 3, this is negative 1. So we need to do the crisscross, which means the correct chemical formula of aluminum chloride is AlCl3. So that's the time, lagyan natin ng subscript dyan. Okay, hindi siya nagfa-follow ha sa reactant. Kung ang reactant may subscript na 1, hindi automatic na 1 din ang subscript niya on the product. Dependent siya again sa iyong charges. Now for NaO, NaO. Sodium is positive 1, oxygen is negative 2. So we need to crisscross also. So sodium will take the 2 and oxygen will take 1. I'll place 2 here as the subscript. Okay? So hindi sila magkaparehas ng subscript, which means this is not a balanced equation. You need to balance this one, ALO, Na, and Cl. So we have 2 aluminum, 3 oxygen, 1 sodium, 1 Cl. On the other side, 1 aluminum, 3 Cl, 2 sodium, and 1 oxygen. Dili sila balance tanan. Okay? Dili sila balance tanan. You can start anywhere. It's up to you. I'll just start with aluminum kay nauna na siya diha sa listahan. So I'll write 2 there. Make it 2. Pero kasama niya si chlorine, so 2 times 3, this becomes 6. Okay? Next, oxygen. I'll try to balance oxygen by writing 3 here. So 3. Now for oxygen, this is balanced, this is balanced. But kasama niya si sodium, so 3 times 2 is equal to 6. Now I'll write 6 here so that sodium will become 6, pero kasama niya si chlorine, so chlorine will also become 6. So this is already balanced. So let us see. Yes, this is double replacement reaction. You can also call this double displacement or metathesis. But for the chemical equation, yeah, this is correct. 1 molecule of aluminum oxide reacting with 6 molecules of sodium chloride to yield 2 molecules of aluminum chloride and 3 molecules of sodium oxide. Ganun mo siya basahin ha, ang buong equation. Questions for number 6? Wala. Kaya pa sa mga brain cells nato diha. O katugo na lamira ba kayo itulugan ng mga oras sa class? Kasi natug na ng uban dira ha. Uta naghikola na nito bag. Kasi naguna-una naghagok sana all. Next, number 7. Let's have number 7. 4 more before tayo mag-end. And then after this, since na again na ay academic counseling at 3 o'clock, I will give you an activity for you to practice the prediction of the product and balancing the equation. Ang quiz na to ani paghuman na pod sa intrams. So mag-expect mo class, paghuman sa intrams, nagtambak na inyuhang mga quiz. Maglipay-lipay sa daw mo sa mo mag kung sa tawagan na magkayod. Okay, zinc sulfate plus hydrogen. Compound plus element. Okay, compound plus element automatic. This is supposedly single replacement reaction. But before ka mo conclude, kailangan sa nato tanawon ng activity series of metal if this is possible. You have there the hydrogen, supposedly it will replace zinc. But looking at the activity series of metal, hydrogen is placed below zinc, actually far below pa, kaya na pa yung mga elements in between. So this is less reactive. This is more reactive, which means dili na niya mapildi class. Tama na siya na no reaction. Again, this is no reaction. Okay? Questions for number 7? Pag dili gani possible, just write no reaction ha. Okay? Sige, for number 8, we have here compound plus compound. So pag compound plus compound, it's double displacement. Let's have the exchange partners. So we have here iron 3 chloride, or we call this ferric chloride. Ano kabalumang ko nga iron 3 chloride na siya? Because of the subscript na 3, kung mag-reverse ta, this is coming from the iron, and the one here is for chlorine. Okay, that's how I know that this is iron 3 chloride or ferric chloride. Kasi di ba iron can be positive 2 or positive 3. Now, this is sodium hydroxide. Let's try to predict the products. Fe is positive 3, chloride is negative 1, Na is positive 1, OH is a polyatomic ion, negative 1 ang kanyang charge. Exchange partner sila, positive and negative. Bisag kinsa lang ang mauna ha, if you choose to write first the NaCl, okay lang. If you choose to write first the FeOH, okay lang din. Walang problema dyan. Plus NaCl. Okay? Next. Syempre, we have to check first whether our chemical formula is correct or not by checking their charges. Again, Fe is positive 3, OH is negative 1. Definitely, we need to do the crisscross here, which means this is the correct chemical formula of iron 3 hydroxide. Lagay natin sa open and close parenthesis si OH kasi magkakaroon siya ng subscript na 3. While si NaCl, Na is positive 1, Cl is negative 1. This is equal to 0. So this is already correct. Okay? Now, hindi sila magkakapareho ng subscript. So hindi talaga ito balanced. FeCl, Na, and OH. So again, hindi ko pinaghiwalay si oxygen and hydrogen for the hydroxide. Kasi ang OH dito class sa reactant, OH pa rin naman sa product na side. So we have 1 Fe, 3 Cl, 1 Na, 1 OH. On the other side, 1 Fe, 3 hydroxides, 1 Na, and 1 Cl. So ang hindi balance dyan, si chlorine and si hydroxides. I'll try to start with chlorine. I'll write 3 here. So chlorine becomes 3, but kasama niya si sodium, so sodium also becomes 3. So I'll write 3 here to make the sodium 3 also. And since kasama niya si OH, OH will also become 3. So this is already balanced. Let us see. FeCl3 plus 3 NaOH. Naputol. FeOH3 ito no, and this is 3 NaCl. So this is correct. And this is double replacement reaction. Again, kahit unahin mo si NaCl sulat, okay lang. Walang problema dyan. Okay, next. May pangutana? Mag-next na ta. Last 2. before tayo mag-activity. Okay. This one. This is ammonium sulfate plus sodium bicarbonate. Again, this is called, NH4 is ammonium, right? SO4 is sulfate. So ammonium sulfate plus sodium HCO3 is called bicarbonate or hydrogen carbonate. But nevertheless, gamit lang tawag sodium bicarb or sodium bicarbonate. Pag mag-react sila class, this one is a compound, this is another compound here. So exchange partners tayo. So we have here NH4 and SO4. NH4 is positive 1, SO4 is negative 2. Look at your index cards there. And then sodium is positive 1. Bicarbonate is negative 1. So exchange partners. So this will become NH4 2SO4. Sulat ko siya. Kulang akong space. Anyway, gabay naman ako sulat. NH4 SO4 plus NaHCO3. The new products will be NH4 will now partner with the bicarbonate and Na will now partner with SO4. Okay? This will now be the products. The next step, para-parehas lang, ulit-uliton yung yun na to hangtod makasabot mo ha. So NH4 HCO3. NH4 again is positive 1. HCO3 is negative 1. So this is equal to 0. No need for a crisscross. So this is already the correct chemical formula of ammonium bicarbonate. Now for Na2, ako nang giingon ng answer. NaSO4, sodium is positive 1, sulfate is negative 2. So crisscross, Na will have the 2 plus and then SO4. So lagyan natin ng subscript here na 2. So we have made sure now na tama ang atuang chemical formula. Okay? Next, balancing equation. Pag balance ko nito, ayo kay magkalisang ani class ha nga daghan kay kag elements because remember ang NH4 din ha, NH4 gihapon sa pika, so we'll treat this as one entity. So ammonium lang gid na siya. Okay? Do not separate the N and the H. Kay dugay kay kamahuman ugma pa. And then SO4 is still SO4 here. So this is still sulfate. So ayaw ninyo siya i-separate. And then you have the Na. And lastly, take note of this. HCO3 here is still HCO3 on the other side. So wag din natin siyang i-separate. Isang entity para dili ta magdugay sa atuang balancing. So let's try to balance this. Ammonium, meron siyang subscript na 2 which means dalawang molecules ka dyan ng ammonium. Sa sulfate, hindi siya naka-enclose sa parenthesis. So this is counted as 1. Na is 1. And bicarbonate also, wala tayong open and close parenthesis which means it's counted as 1. Okay, dili siya 3 ha, kanang 3 parang lang siya kay oxygen. So mabala na nato siya class nga naay nga pila ka buok molecules ang polyatomic ion kung naa siya sa sulod sa open and close parenthesis and naa siya separate na subscript. On the other side, ammonium wala na siya open and close parenthesis, so 1. And then bicarbonate also is 1. Sodium is 2. And sulfate, hindi din naka-open and close parenthesis, so it's also counted as 1. So ang hindi balance dito is si ammonium. So I'll try to write 2 here so that ammonium becomes 2. This is now balanced. Kasama niya si bicarbonate. So bicarbonate becomes 2 here. Say next nga dili balance, sodium. So I'll try to place 2 here. So sodium becomes 2. And kasama niya si bicarbonate. Bicarbonate becomes 2 also. So it has been balanced na. Let us see. NH4 2SO4 plus 2 NaHCO3 plus 2 NH4 HCO3 plus Na2SO4. Okay, this is correct. Questions sa number 9? Unsay nalibog din ha. Patience is a virtue taaning ato ang chemical equation ha. Wala na. So last na ni silver nitrate. Syempre we call this silver nitrate plus aluminum fluoride. Compound plus compound gihapon. So exchange partners gihapon ta. Wait lang, let me write this. Exchange partners pa rin. Silver is +1, nitrate is -1. Pag ma-memorize ninyo ni sa sunod class, paspas na lang mo, dili na kailangan magsige mog tan-aw o index cards ninyo. Kung ma-memorize ninyo siya ha. Ako kay mao man ni akong kinaon sa akong everyday life. Mo na nga bisag baliktaron ang world, memorize na ako ni siya class. Mo na nga I don't need to use periodic table or index cards for this. Okay? Now we have AlF3. So Al is +3, that is group 3 in the periodic table. Fluorine is -1. So exchange tayo ng partners, positive and negative. So positive na silver will now partner with fluorine plus aluminum. Again, unahon og sulat class ang positively charged ha, dili pwede nga FAG. Kay F is negatively charged. So AlF3. Ay, sorry. NO3 na day siya. Wait, let me delete that. And then NO3. Next, let's have the charges so that we will really verify kung tama ang atuang chemical formula. Silver is +1, fluorine is -1. So this is equal to 0. Tama na siya na chemical formula. And lastly, Al and NO3, aluminum is +3, nitrate is -1. So you have to do the crisscross, which means aluminum is 1 atom only, pero nitrate, ilagay natin siya inside an open and closed parenthesis and the 3 will be written outside. Okay. So tama na ato ang chemical formula, balancing na lang ang kulang. Ag, and then again NO3 ha, kay ang NO3 din he sa reactant, NO3 maghihapon sa product. So ayaw i-bulag. And then aluminum, and lastly we have the fluorine. So 1 silver, 1 nitrate. Again, pag wala nakasulod sa open and closed parenthesis, walay subscript, automatic, the polyatomic ion is counted as 1 molecule. And then aluminum is 1, fluorine is 3. And then we have here silver is 1, nitrate is 3. Ano man, it's inside an open and closed parenthesis and meron siyang subscript na 3 there. So that's counted as 3 molecules. Aluminum here is 1 and fluorine is also 1. And ano yung hindi balanced? Nitrate. So I'll try to place 3 here so that nitrate will be 3. This is balanced. Kasama niya si silver, so silver becomes 3 also. So pwede ko siyang lagyan ng 3 dito para silver becomes 3. This is balanced already. And fluorine will also become 3 kasi magkasama sila. So this is already balanced. So tama ba yung answer ng reporters? Double displacement. 3 silver nitrate, 1 aluminum fluoride, 1 aluminum nitrate, and yes, 3 molecules of silver fluoride. Questions for this one? Kinsa ang wala pa nakasabot aning ato ang types of chemical reactions? Nakuha na ba nimo? Sige kalisang ani klasa. Uban manggod lisang sa chemistry kay lisod siya. Pagkita pa lang sa chemical formula, lisod na kaayo. Just follow the process, the step-by-step process para dili mo malisdan. I think kapila na nako iulit-ulit ang process nato. Bisag unsang klaseng chemical reaction pa na siya. And let's have our practice activity. Aside from this activity, mag-practice ta ulit. Let me check if nakuha ninyo tong inyo ako ang gipang ingon. Okay? Let's see.